Well, first and foremost, you should know that the Yetzer Hara grows with the person, especially after bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. So the Yetzer Hara that she had when she was 7, 6 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, 11 years old, was very, very small to the point of insignificance. So that's why it was very easy for her to learn. She loved it. She had very little remorse, a temptation to go against it, and so on. Once she became bat mitzvah, the Yetzer Hara grew even more, grew much more, because now the mitzvot went from being something that she should do to something that she has to do, which is a very, very big difference. Very big difference that most people don't understand. The obligation to do a mitzvah is, an understanding that the mitzvot are an obligation, is a much more important than simply liking the Torah and liking the mitzvot. We do the mitzvot because we have to. And we get rewarded for doing the mitzvot because we have to. Not because we like it. It's good if you like it, but the main reward is because you have to. That's a person that serves as creator. This person that serves as creator because the creator commanded him is much more important in a creator's eyes than someone that just decides to do something for the creator even if he didn't ask him to. Now, of course, you could say, yeah, but what about Chassidut? Chassidut is not different. Chassidut, in essence, is serving the creator, but even more than what he commanded us. So you're doing what you have to, but even more so. So the point being is that since the Yetzer Hara changed with her bat mitzvah, because now she's obligated to do the mitzvot, whereas in the past she wasn't, that's a difficult battle of its own. Second thing is, you're saying that she had some health issues. I can tell you from personal experience, it is very, very easy to want to sleep forever when you're sick. Very easy. It's very depressing. It's mentally challenging. The sickness is more difficult mentally than it is physically. Even if you have pain, it's more difficult mentally to continue going up. So it's important to know that you have to be as patient as possible with them. There's so much so, the Gemara says that we don't judge someone that's in pain. Meaning, if someone that's in pain expresses anger, he doesn't get judged the same way as everybody else. That if someone's angry, they break something, it's considered idolatry. If that person is in pain, it's not considered idolatry. Why? Because once a person is in pain, you cannot judge him. Period. Can't judge them. It doesn't mean that they're allowed to do whatever they want, but in essence, it is a very, very big leniency. Very big leniency, which we'll discuss in another time how big that leniency is. But nonetheless, when someone is in pain, you cannot judge them at all. At all. Why? Because being in pain is something that you cannot quantify. You can't tell somebody how much pain you're in. I can tell you that I have pain from 1 to 10 and I'm at a level 6. And to you, okay, that's not so bad. But in reality, next to somebody else, a level 6 may be like Genom. Whereas to that person may be, less, and so on and so forth. So pain is something you cannot see. Pain is something you cannot quantify. Nonetheless, pain is not something that you can judge. So when a person is going through pain of some kind, it's very difficult. It's also an age where people tend to be lazy, sleep a lot and do a lot of things, even if they're not sick. Needless to say, if they are sick. So this all goes in line. What I would suggest is that you just simply ask her as best you can to obviously follow the rules of the house, follow the rules of the Torah, and not to desecrate it openly, but also try to reason with her, try to talk to her, try to have maybe your wife talk to her, see if there's anything you can do to help her. Perhaps maybe she wants to watch a lecture with you, or there's a video, or perhaps she wants to do other things, but you have to be very careful not to push her too far, because she's already dealing with a lot. So you have to, with people like that, you have to, in essence, use the leniencies that are permissible to use. For example, there is no obligation for a woman to pray 3 times a day. A woman simply needs to do Shema Yisrael and Amidah once a day. That's what a woman has to do. Now, if she doesn't, then, again, you could try to see if you can get your wife to talk to her, or maybe perhaps reward her for it, encourage her to do it, pray together with her, see if you can get her to do it, or perhaps just, again, there are certain times that you have to let certain things go because she's going through her own difficulties and her own test. But I would say in this particular case, when there's pain and health issues involved, you have to be very, very patient, but don't just do nothing either. Like try to talk to her, say, you know what, I'll pray, and you just listen. At the very least, she knows that it's still in the house, it's still within, even though it's not fulfilling the mitzvah for her at all. But at the very least, it's still, she sees that someone else is praying. Maybe she'll want to join you. Okay, you know what? You don't have to watch the lecture, but I'm going to watch. Why don't you just at least sit next to me? You can do whatever you want while he's next to me, but just sit next to me. Well, listen to it in the background, and so on and so forth. Try to be reasonable with her again, because it's a very big battle. It's a very big battle, especially for someone that's young and doesn't have the same equipment as someone that's old and experienced. So you have to be patient with her as much as possible. Of course, you could try to see if she can talk to somebody more openly, whether it be your wife or the local rebbitzin, or somebody that she could talk to more openly to see if there's anything specific that's bothering her or causing her to be tired or causing her to be lethargic altogether. Is it depression? And perhaps even check if there's something chemical. It could be a chemical misbalance that may require some help. I don't necessarily recommend antidepressants very easily. In most cases, I don't think that people should use them. But there are some cases that people need to have them in order to survive and not commit suicide. So sometimes this could happen at different stages of life. So you have to sometimes check. Maybe it's a chemical misbalance, not just simply being down or bored or something, but it's actually something physical. So you have to check. But the point is that don't give up, but also don't push too much. Don't push too much at a time where she has pain and agony. Should a Jew who is returning to religion after generational gap go to yeshiva? Still learning Hebrew vowels and starting Aramaic. You inspire me to better myself. I can't stop watching your shiur, and I have a rabbi that studies with me. Thank you for learning with me, Shabtai. I really appreciate it. As far as your main learning, you should do as much of it as you possibly can on your own by watching our lectures, reading, good, authentic Torah books from legitimate Orthodox publishers. That's the minimum. But if you can go to yeshiva, if you're at the age of going to a yeshiva, then you should go to a yeshiva, yes. As a side note, again, I don't know how old you are and much about you. If you're a young person that's going to public school, then yes, you should leave the public school immediately and go to yeshiva. Go to a Jewish school. Do not go to public school for a single day. But if you're already older, let's say you're in your 20s, where school is no longer an obligation for you, you could elect to go to school, but you don't have to go to school. Then, if you have the ability to go to learn in a yeshiva, I would recommend it. At the very least, even to go for a month, 2, 6 months, a year, however much you can. I have quite a few students that we've sent to different yeshivot, to Ol Sameach, to Eish, to different places. When they first started doing their tshuva. In some cases, they only went for like a month or two. In other cases, they went for a couple of years, because that's where you could really focus all of that time and energy on learning some fundamental things that will take you much longer to do on your own with all of the distractions of life. So if you have the ability to go to yeshiva, then I would recommend you go to yeshiva. But if you don't have the ability, then continue doing what you're doing. But I wouldn't spend too much time learning the language. I would spend more time learning the Torah, because the Torah is what's going to get you to heaven, not the language. There are plenty of people that speak Hebrew and even Aramaic that are going to end up going to Gehenna for eternity. Because you don't go to heaven just for knowing Hebrew or Aramaic, but you do go to heaven for knowing the mitzvot and then fulfilling them. So especially since you're in the early stages of tshuva, I would highly recommend that you focus on learning the mitzvot and learning the Torah and what happened and who, what, when, and how, more so than the language itself. If you have a large block of time to learn, let's say you could learn 10 hours a day or more, and you want to designate, let's say, a half hour or even an hour of that time to learn Hebrew, then that's fine. But if you only have, let's say, 2-3 hours a day to learn Torah, then spending a half hour or more on learning Hebrew, I think is not going to give you as much as you can get from learning more Torah. And anyway, you'll learn more and more Hebrew over time. So it's again, there's priorities, and you have to look at everything you do like you look at an investment. Where am I going to get the most out of it, both in this world and the next? When are we going to build the third and final temple? And don't tell me when Mashiach comes. It's up to all of Israel. We're going to build it tomorrow. Tomorrow. That's what the Gemara says when Yeshua ben Levi spoke to Eliyahu Navi, and he said to him, when is Mashiach going to come? And he says, tomorrow. Go see him. Go see him. So he went to go to see the Mashiach. It was like at the gate of Rome. And he asked the Mashiach, when are you coming? And Mashiach said, tomorrow. And then the following day came, and he didn't come. So he came back to Yaron Rabbi and he said to him, what, the Mashiach's a liar? He goes, no, he meant tomorrow, meaning that I'll come tomorrow if all of you do tshuva. So that's the answer. When is Mashiach going to come? When are we going to build a temple? When we all do tshuva. When we all do tshuva. A person that understands what it means, Mashiach coming and the third temple being built, will not be so focus on Mashiach coming and the third temple being built more than they'll be focused on doing tshuva and helping others do tshuva, because if the Mashiach does come, then that means that everybody that has not done tshuva will be destroyed. And that's not going to be a fun day. Are Sephardic supposed to tuck in their tzitzit and the fringes underneath their clothes? Supposed to? I wouldn't necessarily say supposed to, not to be really so precise in the semantics of it. You can tuck in the tzitzit because that's the typical custom of Sephardic Jews in Israel, especially where they walk around and the tzitzit is inside, it's not sticking out. That's the most common custom among the Sephardic Jews, where the tzitzit is inside the clothes. Tzitzit hanging outside is more of an Ashkenazi minhag. But will you be stoned if you are a Sephardi walking around with your tzitzit outside? No, not at all. I personally do, most of the time it's covered. If I go to a shiur and so on, it's covered. But sometimes if I'm in the house, or even sometimes I go out, rarely, but nonetheless, whenever I actually do, sometimes the tzitzit is out. It's not again, it's not an obligation to have it one way or the other. It's but like I said, if a person wants to be closer to their customs ways, you go to close to your father's ways, for example, then if you're Sephardi, it would be inside. Are we responsible for professions we choose? For instance, if one is your audiologist, optometrist, and etc., it helps public to hear or see better, and people use their hearing to listen to Lashon Hara or watch immodest forbidden pictures. Very good. Okay, so you are responsible for your profession as long as your profession itself, or to at least make sure that your profession itself doesn't directly enable people to do bad things. Meaning, if you're an optometrist or urologist or anything else, and you're helping people feel healthy or have better visions or be able to procreate and so on, if they choose to do bad things with something you helped them feel better on, that's their problem. It's not on you. It's not on you. Why? Because they could do good with it. They could do good with it. They're choosing to do bad. So the fact that they're choosing to do bad is not your problem. But you cannot be, let's say, a dealer in a casino, or own a casino, or own a nightclub, or a bar. Why? Because at such places, people don't have good choices. They only have bad choices. So you providing that service in essence, you're making them bad. So you are responsible for your profession, but to the extent of not being directly responsible for other people's sins. But as far as indirectly responsible, what if, let's say, people use something good for a bad reason, that's their problem. That's their problem. It's not your problem. Will you please explain God's name Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey in a pronunciation known? Is it wrong to write or say? Yes, the Gemara, Masechet Ta'anit, says anyone that says the name of Hashem or pronounces the name of Hashem has no share of the world to come. Not allowed to do it. Not allowed to pronounce it. So all of these people that you see that are pronouncing the name of Hashem, the way that it's written, are typically it's a red flag for Christian missionaries. Messianic Christians, or they call themselves Messianic Jews. Those are really the only people that say it that way. But you're not going to find an Orthodox Jew pronouncing Hashem's name for the reason that I just told you. You're not allowed to do it. We don't even pronounce Hashem's name ever. Ever. We don't ever say Hashem's name. We say things like Hashem, which means the name. What do you mean the name? The name means that the name itself is so holy, we're not allowed to say it. So when I say Hashem, you know that I'm only referring to the name. What the name? The only name that's so holy that you can't even say it. That's what Hashem means. We also say the word Amunai. Amunai means my Lord, my master. It's with a D, but even saying my master is so special that we don't even say that so easily. We only say it either when it's part of a prayer or it's part of a verse, even though it's actually not God's name. It's not God's name. Even some poskim say that to say the word, the God word, is a problematic. If you're just saying it just like that, like when people say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe," like when they say the end D instead of a SH, meaning it's instead of saying "Oh my gosh," they actually say Hashem's name. Very big problem. Very big problem. And this is done every day by people. I used to do it myself for a long time, until I realized this is actually taking Hashem's name in vain. One of the violations of the 10 Commandments, Chas v'Shalom. So, even though it's the English name, even though it's the English name, there are some poskim that rule that the English name is considered holy. And it's interestingly enough that the English name, if you add the letters, the value of the English letters, it also adds to the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud Kei Vav Kei that you're referring to, same number, 26. Anyway, so it's there's very interesting things about the name of Hashem, but we're not allowed to say it. We're not allowed to say Hashem's name. The full name of Hashem that the Kohen Gadol would use at the Beit HaMikdash is 72 letters. 72 letters. Anyone that knew it would be able to change nature, if you will. Change nature. Many of the Chachamim would use the name at times of need, times of national need, in order to do certain things. But you're not allowed to use it just like that. But the point being is that having Hashem's full name is saying it's a big deal, is the understatement of the year, or the century, or ever. It's seeing Hashem's name in full. It's in essence allows a person to change nature. Change nature. Many of the times that you see 2-letter words on a card or on pages in either Sidurim or different books and so on, these are all different names of God. They're all different names of Him. And they're used in different ways for Kabbalistic purposes and other types of things, but each one has a level. But saying it by itself has a certain value. Doing what's called kavanot has a much higher value, and so on and so forth. Point being is, let's keep it basics. Basic Aleph Bet. I don't need to mess with kavanot. I don't need to mess with any Kabbalah. I just need to make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do in order to avoid sin and do mitzvot so I can go to heaven. That's all I need to worry about. All this other stuff is interesting, it's mentally stimulating, but there's more risk than I'm willing to accept. And there's no need. Did the planets align when Earth came into creation? Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, meaning before HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, there was a beginning, if you will, the beginning of everything. He created the heaven and the earth. So in essence, in the heaven, he aligned all the planets where they are. And everything, as you would see, is in essence spinning in place. The earth, for example, is spinning almost 1,700 miles per hour, but in the same exact place. It's not moving throughout the atmosphere like a meteor, if you will. And everything else is doing the same thing. But for all of those people that think we all came from some rock, and that rock turned to all the planets and so on, one interesting proof that I saw some time ago and then recently reviewed again is that something that's very interesting, that that proves that obviously the whole evolution and everything coming from the Big Bang explosion out of nothing is complete nonsense, is that if, let's say for example, you would throw a rock, okay, you throw a rock, it would spin in a certain direction because of the way you're throwing it. You throw it this way, it'll spin this way, you throw it that way, it'll spin that way, and so on and so forth. As you noticed, the planets, if they all came from one explosion, and that means that all of the planets would have to be spinning in the same direction. So that's, the fact that they're spinning is in itself an anomaly, but the point being is that if they all are spinning, they'll also be spinning in the same direction. But interestingly enough, there is several planets that are spinning in the opposite direction, meaning counterclockwise. Which obviously negates the whole Big Bang Theory and all the other garbage that people brainwash the society with. So that's the thing. But as far as the planets, in essence, they were put in Bereshit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put everything together. When wearing a tzitzit, Mike is asking, does a man need to be careful that tzitzit does not touch the covered parts when going to the bathroom or changing? Does the tzitzit have sanctity? So, as far as the tzitzit having sanctity, yes, you're going to have a tzitzit, you're going to kiss it at different times if you're praying, but it also gives you protection. The Arizal, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the Arizal cried profusely before he died, or maybe the Gaon Vilna, or maybe both. But anyway, one of the tzaddikim cried profusely on his deathbed because he says that in this world you can make endless amount of mitzvot for simply wearing a tzitzit that you can buy for $10, $20. You can make an endless amount of mitzvot. How? Every second that you wear a tzitzit, every second, if you're a Jew, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah from the Torah. So he says each one of these mitzvot is another world. It's a world. It's a gift that is eternal. For every second you wear a tzitzit. So surely every Jew needs to wear a tzitzit. Man, obviously. But the point being is that the tzitzit definitely has sanctity. But that does not mean that you can't use it for certain things. Meaning, you're allowed to go to the bathroom with the tzitzit on, so long as you are obviously not soiling the tzitzit directly. So you need to be careful not to soil it. But as far as if it touches your body, whether it be covered parts or uncovered parts, that's not a problem. Because anyway, the tzitzit is usually worn as an undergarment. So naturally, at different times, it will touch different covered parts. Surely, it's more appropriate if you move it to different things, but you get used to it, and most of the time a person is wearing pants or underwear, so most of the time it's not really going to be there. So when you put the tzitzit, if you're new to putting on tzitzit, when you're tucking it into your pants, you tuck it into your pants in between the pants and the underwear. You don't put it under the underwear. You put it above the underwear. So it's not touching your private parts over there. But if you're ever going to the bathroom and so on, then the most common approach is to take the back 2 strings and the 2 forward strings, take them both, tie them together, like with 1 or 2 knots on top of your belly while you're going to the bathroom, so you don't have to worry about soiling the tzitzit. You can do that. So it's so that way you don't have to, or you can just hold them in your hands. But that's that. As far as the obviously you don't take a shower with the tzitzit, but you go to sleep with the tzitzit if you want. You don't have to sleep with the tzitzit. Your obligation mainly with tzitzit is to wear it when you are awake during the day. That's the main time to wear a tzitzit. If you go to sleep, then obviously you don't have to wear tzitzit. But if you do, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. You'll be blessed for it. Does hypnosis undermine free will? Some people under hypnosis have great strength, pain tolerance, and can perform amazing memory recall with specific details. Everything is in the Torah. What is the Torah perspective of hypnosis? So there is a movie that Rabbi Mizrahi made years ago called Life After Death. As part of that movie, he goes into parapsychology and different aspects of psychology. And there are certain hypnotists that are in the psychology world as well, where they use hypnosis in order to do something called regression, which is to get a person to go back even before their life. And they've been successful at getting people to go and start going back to their previous carnations, which, as a side note, is also one of the interesting proofs of reincarnation, being 100% real and not just theory. Even in the non-Jewish world, it's a known thing. Anyway, they're able to get people to go back many hundreds of years before their time, and in some cases they've been documented of having a person that, let's for example, spoke English before hypnotized as his only language that he spoke, and then they would go and do this regression, and the person would go back, 500 years or 1,000 years, and start speaking to them, ancient French, which nobody speaks today really anymore. Yes, they've been able to do that, and under hypnosis. Now, I don't recommend this because it is dangerous. If the person, the person could perhaps get a person to go back, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can get you to go come back to where you are. That's number one. Number two, you should never really play with your mind. Your mind is too valuable to play with it, to mess with it. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to be is your standard self. If he wanted you to be hypnotized, he would make that the standard. So yes, there are some chachamim that have been able, in the Kabbalistic world, to do things much more than hypnosis. There's even Ilui Neshama, which is being able to take the neshama of a person, yourself or other people, and literally lift it to the heavens and show the person different things. And there's stories like this in the Gemara, and there's even stories like this in recent generations. Much more than hypnosis. But again, this is dangerous, if it's not done the right way, even by people that are holy. We have a story in the Gemara where one person died. And number two, it's simply not what HaShem is looking for us to do. HaShem is not looking for us to have our mind go to La La Land. Even though it seems like, but I could be more focused, I could be more strong, I could contain more pain. Yes, but you can't stay hypnotized for the rest of your life. You have to go back to yourself. So that if you have to keep going back to a standard, that means that the standard is what HaShem wants. You have to elevate the standard. But without anything else.